Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Good Tuesday evening to you all. Hope you guys are doing well out there. Had yourselves a great day, and I certainly appreciate you folks joining me this evening as we discuss the tropics. Most of this video is going to be that, discussing the tropics, figuring out what's going on with Tropical Storm Bret. Is it still have a chance to become a hurricane? We'll talk about that. The impacts to the Lesser Antilles, what's going to happen to it ultimately as it gets into the Caribbean. We're going to break it all down for you folks. We'll talk a little bit on the system behind it, which is right now still Invest 93L. It's not a tropical depression as of right now, as of 6:15 Eastern time as I'm making this video. We'll give you a little bit of an update on that, but I can tell you that system does not look that great this evening. It's struggling. But we'll break it all down for you folks. Talk about impacts, talk about why it could strengthen maybe over the next 48 hours and why it eventually will weaken. We'll talk about what's steering it and just all that good stuff for you folks to keep you guys aware. And then stay tuned towards the end of the video. We'll give you an update on what I think is a concerning flooding risk for areas of the higher elevations of like North Carolina, even the upstate of South Carolina, even outside these higher elevations. I think flooding, which is ongoing right now, but could become a major concern potentially over the next, really over into the overnight hours, into tomorrow and then the next day potentially. So we'll break it all down for you folks. If you guys have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. Like the video if you like it. It goes a long way. And, this morning's video is one of the bigger videos that we've had in a while, since I would say, I think late April, early May. So it was really cool. I've never had a video viewed that highly in the month of June before. So almost hit 10,000 views on the video. So thank y'all. Welcome to any new viewers. Appreciate the support. It means the world. You guys got anything that I can pray about or pray over, as always, please put those in the comments below. I'm praying for you folks in Texas. The heat is unbearable. I saw a National Weather Service that said the heat index was 127 degrees in a community in a small town in Texas. The actual air temperature, 107 degrees. The dew point was 78 degrees. That made your heat index 127 degrees. That's what it feels like when you walk outside. So I'm definitely praying for a cool down for you folks and a change up soon. But let's talk about the tropics. The latest outlook from 5 p.m. So this could change 8 p.m., 11 p.m., 2 a.m., 5 a.m. tomorrow morning. But as of right now, this is a 45 mile per hour storm. This went up 5 miles per hour. And really it's because we've had some deep convection explode right around the low level circulation of Bret over the last few hours. We'll show you that here in a second. So it's actually strengthened temporarily. So we have tropical storm watches up for a couple areas in the Lesser Antilles. This does include Barbados right here. And I want to let you guys know if I butcher any of these areas out here in the Lesser Antilles, their names or anything like that, I do apologize. You guys correct me. I'm not the best with sounding names out. Sometimes I let the easiest names kick my butt. So, and someone actually let me know, and I'm not ashamed to admit it, guys. In Louisiana, I did not realize you guys did not have counties. It's called something else, parish or something like that. I had no clue until you guys let me know. I even talked to somebody at work about it today. They're like, yeah, man, you didn't know that? And I was like, yeah, I was kind of ashamed that I didn't know that. So if I've called any of your named areas out there in Louisiana, counties, I do apologize. I had no clue. I really didn't. So anyways, back to the tropics here. Tropical storm Bret, 45 mile per hour storm. You see these little yellow areas, that's tropical storm watches. You can see that down here. No hurricane watches, no tropical storm warnings as of right now. But of course, we do expect these watches and just widespread more watches to be issued, and then some tropical storm warnings to get upgraded from a tropical storm watch. Let's take a look at this. So this is an awesome site, free site. It's called Zoom Earth, and it's like Google Maps, but for the tropics. Okay, and it shows a different way of looking at the cone of uncertainty by you can actually click on these dots and it'll actually tell you the forecast for that time frame. So you got kind of overlapping areas because this is 93L, right, which has a 70% chance to develop in the next 48 hours, 80% chance to develop into a tropical depression within the next 7 days. So ignore this little bubble right here. This is Bret right here. All right, and this is its cone, okay? So by the time we get to 2 a.m. Tonight, Wednesday morning, it could go up to a 50 mile per hour storm. 2 p.m. tomorrow afternoon, all right, it could be a 60 mile per hour storm. Could get as high as a 65 mile per hour storm by tomorrow night. 65 mile per hour storm still by about 2 p.m. And this is when it could really start to impact like Barbados, the Lesser Antilles, Martinique, places like that. It could really start to impact these places. So we gotta watch out as we get into Thursday. This is when the greatest impacts will move into the Lesser Antilles. So, and then when it gets into the Eastern Caribbean, as you can tell, it starts to drop somewhat. Right out here, once it gets pretty far west into the Caribbean Sea, it drops all the way to a 45-mile-per-hour storm. I would argue that against it still being a tropical storm this far. So, but this is it right now. We take another look at it, a little bit at zoomer, more zoomed in close. We look at the infrared right here, and this really shows us our deep convection. These colors right here really symbolize these colder cloud tops, meaning basically this convection is reaching higher up in the atmosphere. The higher up you get in the atmosphere, the colder it gets. So you look down here, you got colder cloud tops right into here. So pretty wild to see. You're getting some big time explosive convection. Actually a kind of an unfavorable time of the day. We call this diurnal minimum. It's basically when the sun is setting. We talked about diurnal maximum this morning. Diurnal minimum is kind of the opposite effect, right? It's that time of the day where the sea surface temperature is right around the same temperature as the air temperature. Both are in the 80s, so there's not a big difference in the temperature. So sometimes you have weakening with these tropical systems in the late afternoon, evening hours. It's actually firing on all cylinders right now for a tropical storm. It's doing quite well. But this could look totally different by the time we get into tomorrow morning. But it looks like a healthy, weak tropical storm right now. Lesser Antilles right into here, Barbados into here. And it's just chugging along, all right? And it's chugging along at 18 miles per hour. So it's moving pretty quickly. I mean, 18 miles per hour for a tropical system, it's us moving pretty quick. So if we look at the latest European from this, we'll start this off for tomorrow morning. It has this at 104 millibar storm. As of now, it is sitting at, brain farting here. It is sitting here. We can go right into here and we'll look right here. If you hear my kids in the background, guys, I do apologize. It is sitting at 106 millibar pressure storm right here. You see this? It says 106. So right now, it's saying by the time we get into tomorrow morning, it'll be 1,004 millibar low pressure storm. So if you look at the latest European, you keep this chugging along, we get into tomorrow afternoon, you notice this number begins to drop. And remember I told you at the beginning of the video, I thought that maybe, hey, the next 24, 48 hours, I think this will try to strengthen into more of a stronger tropical storm. But the National Hurricane Center has dropped its forecast of a hurricane now. It does not think this is going to become our first hurricane of the 2023 hurricane season as of now. But that could change, especially if it gets fire and convection like it is around its center. And if you look right here, the low-level circulation, which was exposed earlier today, is now got a nice area of mid-level convection right over the center of circulation, which is good. It kind of protects the heart and soul of the system, and it kind of puts a moist bubble over it, so it basically temporarily stalls any kind of dry air or any kind of big-time shear from affecting this, and there is some shear affecting this. And that's why we saw this kind of get decoupled earlier today, where the low-level circulation was actually exposed with some light wind shear out the west, but inevitably this is going to increase. The wind shear is going to increase. But we go back to the European, and the latest European from earlier today gets this down to a sub 1,000 millibar low pressure, a strong tropical storm as we're waking up Thursday morning. Okay, it gets it all the way down to a 994 millibar low pressure. All right, so I would argue that's a pretty strong 65, 70 mile per hour tropical storm, maybe even a 75 mile per hour hurricane. But then, as we're getting into Thursday morning, you're already starting to feel the impacts in the Lesser Antilles, and then this rams right into the Lesser Antilles probably Thursday PM sometime into the overnight hours, and then it heads on off and gets into the Eastern Caribbean, which we consider this the graveyard of the Caribbean. This is normally where tropical systems go to meet their demise and weaken. We look at a hurricane model. It's the HAFS, HHAF, I believe is what it's called. And I think this is replacing the HMON model. If I said that correctly, I was watching Tropical Tidbits' video earlier today, and he was showing this video, and he was showing this model and talking about how this replaces. So I think this replaces it at the end of June, but I think that this shows it well. And we start this off tomorrow morning. As you can tell, center of low pressure right here, all the convection, basically all the bad weather, all the moisture is centered to the east of this storm and north of this storm. Okay, this is probably where your worst conditions are, to the north and northeast quadrant of the storm. You keep this rolling here, and as you can tell, the front end of this storm, there ain't a whole lot going on. It's because it's getting blasted by that shear out the west. So as this shear hits it, it lets dry air in, and it really just, you basically get a half a cane, if you will, but it's not a hurricane. You get a system that's really lopsided moisture-wise. But you continue to roll this through. You get into Thursday morning, and it just looks like your typical struggling tropical storm. Okay, but you keep going. Even this model, this hurricane model, by the time you get to Thursday afternoon, has this reaching a sub 1,000 millibar low pressure. And Barbados right into here. You start to move this into this region, and this particular model has a landfall in Martinique. I believe that's the way you say it, Martinique. And it has a landfall right on that island here. Friday morning, makes landfall, probably brings some tropical storm force conditions, some flooding to the island, a little bit of storm surge into this region. And, you know, if this band goes right over one of these islands in the Lesser Antilles, you're going to have sustained wind gusts of probably pushing 45, 50, 60 miles per hour at times. But you guys have definitely handled worse. You know, but I'm sure you guys were prepared. Typically, when tropical systems come in from this direction, a lot of times they don't really explode until they get further east. So in this case, it might be its worst further west. It might be its worst a little bit further east before beginning to weaken as it approaches the Lesser Antilles. But, you know, you got St. Lucia right here. You got, Dominica right into here. So it might definitely squeeze in between these two islands right into here, Martinique and St. Lucia. It might move a little bit further north. We'll see what happens. Regardless, a lot of gusty showers and just squally weather. But I would say as this pulls on through, the worst weather could actually happen after the center of the low pressure moves through. All this convection begins to lash the Lesser Antilles, and you certainly need to be careful when that happens. But you keep going here, and, you know, the estimated time of these tropical storm force winds, you will start to feel it in Barbados as early as Thursday morning, pretty much all the Lesser Antilles by Thursday morning. So this earliest reasonable arrival time of tropical force winds. So please be aware of this. This is an excellent timeline. It's very broad. It's very just out there, just cut and dry. So please be aware of this. Now, we talk about what's causing this to weaken. This is shear, you know, right here where you see the more vibrant red colors, that's where your highest shear is. And one thing, I'll kind of explain what shear is. Shear, directional shear, speed shear, it's basically, and that's a terrible example here. Let's see if we can get a better sounding here. And we're getting bad soundings left and right. So basically you got winds, these trade winds are kicking in from the east. But you see this flip, and you see this kind of flip in the direction as you get higher up with height. So the further you move up with this, the higher up in the atmosphere you get. So you see how you get a flip in direction. That's shear. That's directional shear. Vertical shear, you just got a changing of speed direction or speed with height. So that is shear. And basically this acts to decouple these tropical systems and allows for dry air to come in. And as you can tell, you keep this moving here, and this is getting blasted. You see these streamlines, these little arrows. This is blasting the system with some shear, but there is a possibility that it could strengthen sometime over the next 24 hours. But inevitably, it's going to get up into this region, the Eastern Caribbean, and get absolutely shredded by shear as it gets into this region, where you're probably going to be pushing, 25, 30, 35 knots of shear, which is no good, maybe even higher for these systems. But if you look, and I wanted to get the European up here, but if you look at the European, and this basically shows how moist or dry it is in the atmosphere, in the mid-levels of the atmosphere, okay? As you can tell right now, all that green is mainly to the north and to the east of the system. And this is beginning to become more of a trend throughout the day. And as you continue to get this rolling here, you get into tomorrow, as you can tell, a lot of dry air hitting the east side of the storm. And that's why we just showed you how all the moisture is on the east side of the system. It's because shear is impacting it, allowing for dry air to get in. And I mean, by the time you get into tomorrow evening, you got a lot of dry air trying to get to the center of circulation. But regardless, the European still has this strengthening somehow. So it's kind of weird that the European has that when you have dry air literally wrapped up into this circulation. So it's kind of odd to me that this is strengthening. I think if anything, you know, it might maintain. It might go up another 5 to 10 miles per hour. But, you know, we'll go back to look at this. This thing's exploding right here. Convection. It's looking like a somewhat healthy tropical storm. So the system behind it, it's kind of lost some model guidance on it. It's lost some attention from models. We still need to watch it. But I can tell you, it doesn't look great. This is it behind it. You know, we got a big area of convection that just got going way up here. But this is looking like a very disorganized tropical wave out here. So we're not too worried about that right now. But really what's allowing this to really continue to head west into the Caribbean is really the strength of it. If it was stronger, it's going to turn. It's weaker though. So it's a weaker system. And basically it's just feeling the trade winds more. These trade winds, which is also what's causing shear. Trade winds are ripping pretty good down here in the low levels, but you go higher up and the winds change in direction somewhat, but they really lessen as you go up. That is a form of shear. So trade winds are kicking across down here, and you keep this going. If this was a stronger system, and if this upper trough right here would dig a little bit quicker, it would probably pick this up and maybe sling it north of the Caribbean islands, but that's not the case. But this does swing in this upper troughing right here, swinging enough to try to pick up what's behind it in this little feature right here, which is 93L. So we'll see what happens. Guys, I don't think this is going to be a big deal if you're worried. I keep having a guy asking me about Jamaica. He's going on vacation in Jamaica. It's like, Mitch, is this going to affect me? I don't. I think this could bring... You never can rule out anything once it gets into the Caribbean, but I'm telling you, this area of the Eastern Caribbean is an absolute shredder for tropical systems. Let's briefly go over what's going on with this flooding risk right now. Okay, I might pull up a couple things on the slide off radar scope, but Asheville, Greenville, all the way up the spine of basically the eastern slopes of the North Carolina mountains. A moderate risk of flash flood guidance being met within 25 miles of any given location. Slight risk around it. Listen, please be careful with the flash flooding risk. You guys know all about this in the mountains of North Carolina. You know, we've seen it countless times before with these kind of setups, but this needs to be taken serious. Okay, it really does. And you look at watches and warnings right now. Flood watches ongoing in the Greene counties. This does include almost all the way to Atlanta. It goes all the way to Greenville, Spartanburg, Hickory, Charlotte. You got even a flash flood warning north of Charlotte. So please take this serious. Rainfall between now and Friday morning. Areas will get over a half a foot of rain, I think, bordering some of these eastern slopes of the mountains, all the way up into Virginia, guys, into the Delmarva region. You know, 2, 3, 4 inches of rain is likely. A lot of rain. And, you know, this is what I was going to pull up on the fly. And this is the kind of the things I'm concerned about. And I'm going to look up the Columbia radar really quick. Look at this line of showers and storms. Okay, now these are even actually producing some strong to severe storms. This area right here was severe warned earlier, but you take a look at these. First off, I want to tell you guys the precipitation values are very high, which means that the water content in the atmosphere is very high, which means that these storms are producing a lot of rain. So if you look here at Augusta, you already had a oh, come on, baby, work for me. Here we go. You already have a flash flood warning over Augusta. So you look over here in kind of the eastern Midlands, Saluda, you're probably about to get drenched. But these western sections of South Carolina, these areas of showers and storms are going over the same area. They're just riding over the same area. So you're going to get a flooding risk. And where is this heading? This streamer is heading right towards the higher elevation. So the elevation increases dramatically right into here. And, you know, give or take these areas up here. But I know these areas the most because this is the way I go up to the mountains every year when I go multiple times a year. And elevation dramatically increases right into here. So you're going to have flooding risk right into this region. So please be careful at night. Take the flooding risk serious. Heed the warnings. That's all I got, guys. Thank y'all for tuning in. God bless all y'all and have a great and safe night.